What a way to start the 2025 F1 season that was. Formula One is always at its heart-stopping best in changing conditions, and the Melbourne Grand Prix graced us with a wet, dry, wet race for the ages. It had absolutely everything you could want. There were plenty of crashes, incredible overtakes, terrible strategy calls, and some very questionable team orders. And for all the rookies, it was a race they will never forget. Antonelli's 16th to 4th place was a marvel of a performance for a first-ever Grand Prix. Bearman did incredibly well to finish the race in challenging conditions after barely featuring during practice and qualifying. For Hadjar, Doohan, Bortoleto and Lawson, though, it is a race they will all want to forget. That was the most challenging race any of them will drive this season, and they should all be given the time to adapt to the sport, but not everyone wants to give them that. After a tough rookie race for many drivers, Helmut Marko has made some completely unacceptable comments, and today I'll call him out on them, so don't go anywhere. For the drivers that make it to Formula One, it is a culmination of an entire life worth of work. Since the age of 3 or 4, they've been driving karts, competing locally and then nationally and then internationally, dedicating every free moment they have to racing. The incredible investment by their parents and sponsors to try and get them to the top tier of motorsport builds pressure. Racing every weekend to be the best junior driver in the world builds pressure. The promise of achieving something in the junior series builds pressure. And then they arrive at Formula One. All of a sudden, the eyes of the world are upon them. The expectations of 1,000 employees at the factory are on them. And the risk of being cut at a moment's notice is always in their minds. To then turn up to your first ever race and have to drive on a difficult street track that is covered in painted road markings, which turn to ice in the wet, adds a level of difficulty to the challenge which us as viewers cannot imagine. The pressure on these drivers is, quite simply, unimaginable, and when it goes wrong, it must be crushing. Yes, there are junior series to help them get ready for Formula One, but those F2 cars are nothing like an F1 car really. With 620 horsepower and 570 Nm of torque, when put next to an F1 car it's like comparing a 1990s Fiat Panda with a brand new BMW M4. At upwards of 1,000 horsepower and with an extra 100 Nm of torque, an F1 car is a completely different beast, especially in wet weather, where a micrometer of extra movement in the throttle can send you careering into the barriers. That is a fact that Hadjar and Jack Doohan discovered very quickly in Australia. Before the Grand Prix had even begun, Racing Bull's Hadjar crashed on the formation lap on his debut. The 20-year-old Frenchman was utterly distraught and kept his helmet on and his head down while he forlornly made his way back to the pits. Struggling for words, he said, "I'm just embarrassed and I'm sorry for the team, that's it. It's not up to me to decide how people think of how good I am. I'm just going to try and come back in China with less silly mistakes." The Aussie Doohan had plenty of attention in front of his home crowd but crashed on the first lap, which brought out the first safety car. Doohan, who drove for Alpine in the last race of 2024 in Abu Dhabi before signing a full-time contract with the team, said, "I didn't really understand what happened, to be honest, whether it was a little white line, Inter's not up to temperature. It just seemed as I upshifted to 4th, I lost the car, so it's a lesson learnt. I'll make sure I spend some time with the boys to understand and make sure it doesn't happen again." It was a brutal start to their F1 careers, but they were far from the only drivers to struggle in Australia. Carlos Sainz, an experienced and accomplished F1 driver, also endured a tough Sunday on a weekend when he displayed impressive speed across all practice sessions. The Spaniard spun off into the barriers on the very first lap after his car stepped out when he tried to get on the throttle. First of all, a massive congratulations to Alex and the team. He did a great job and started off our season on the right foot. For me, we've looked at the data and could quickly spot what happened, so this leaves me calmer about the situation. Without going into details, it's related to the upshifts when in safety car mode. I'm obviously frustrated about it and feel sorry for everyone in the team. Simply put, Sainz didn't have a complete grasp of the finer details of his new car's gearbox and it caught him out. He proved to Hadjar and Doohan that it can happen to anyone. Look at last season's Brazilian Grand Prix. Wet weather is the bane of almost every F1 driver, no matter how experienced you are. Another who didn't make it to the end was Red Bull's Lawson, the new teammate of 4-time world champion Max Verstappen. Lawson is the most experienced rookie, if you can still call him that, with 11 races under his belt in 2023 and 24. The New Zealander spun off with 12 laps remaining, rounding off what he described as a really tough weekend. Sauber's Bortoleto, the back-to-back F2 and F3 champion, had a promising start to his F1 debut, but was another to be caught out by the rain on Sunday. The Brazilian had out-qualified his experienced teammate Nico Hülkenberg, which is no easy feat considering Hulk's heroics in qualifying with Haas last season, but crashed late during the race and was forced to retire. Clearly, a tough weekend all round for all the rookies, and an experience they will learn and grow from. What Helmut Marko had to say about it, though, was completely unacceptable. Before I talk about that, though, if you're enjoying the video and want to catch all the news and analysis from the new season, make sure to give the video a like and subscribe to F1 Reverse. Thanks a lot. Following Isaac Hadjar's formation lap exit from the Australian Grand Prix, the young Red Bull driver was seen in tears, making his way back to the team's garage. As I said, the pressure that these young adults are placed under is beyond anything most of us can imagine. At just 20, Hadjar lives in the brutal ecosystem that is the Red Bull driver program. Ran by Dr. Helmut Marko, these drivers are trained from a very young age to be the best they can be, and any mistake, any sign of weakness, and any wrong step can see them cut loose and their hopes and dreams destroyed. It is a program which has shaped some gems on the current grid, such as Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen, but it has also almost destroyed some drivers. Fifth-place finisher Alex Albon is all too familiar with the brutality of the Red Bull system. It almost ended his career a few years back. Helmut's dictatorial leadership can work, but at times you need a softer side as well. These drivers need an arm pulling around them and picking up at times. What they don't need is a boot to the balls while they're down, and that's exactly what Helmut did to Isaac Hadjar. In an interview with ORF, Marko said, "Isaac Hadjar did a little crying after his crash. That was a bit embarrassing." It's a statement that is completely out of order. Yes, Hadjar made a costly mistake which ended his race, but he was just one of 6 who suffered a retirement. Of course he is emotional. With all of the pressure that is placed on him by the system that Helmut runs, it's no wonder we saw a completely normal outpouring of emotion from Hadjar. He has built his whole life toward that race, and for it to end on turn 2 of the formation lap is heartbreaking. It's no wonder he cried. I felt like crying for him. To call it embarrassing is absolutely out of order. These are Marko's drivers. He should be the one picking them up and helping them learn and grow from their mistakes, not trying to make them feel worse in the media. He's old enough to be Hadjar's grandfather, but he acts like a petulant child most of the time. Fortunately for Hadjar, Anthony Hamilton was on hand to offer Hadjar the shoulder and kind words he needed in that moment. "When I saw it happen, my heart just sank for him," Hamilton Sr. told Sky Sports. Not just for him, for his parents, for everything they've done to work hard to get to this one point, and it's like it's snatched from you. I just felt terrible for him, so I thought, you know what, I need to go and tell this kid to keep your head high, walk tall, you're gonna come back. I think he's a phenomenal driver. I think there's more to come from Isaac than we probably have seen this weekend. It was a show of pure class from Anthony. While his own son was completing a historic first race for Ferrari, he took the time to step away from watching it to pick up a young driver who was desperately in need of someone to console him. When Red Bull finally decide that Helmut Marko is no longer of any help to the organization, perhaps they should be calling up Anthony to take over the young driver program. Having raised and managed the sport's most successful driver, he's certainly better qualified for it than Marko, and after the actions of both at the Australian Grand Prix, he's shown he'd be far better at it as well. What do you think of all the rookies in Australia? And how do you feel about Marko calling Hadjar an embarrassment? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you haven't already, make sure to check out our new documentary on the crashes that changed F1 forever. I promise you won't be disappointed. Until next time, drive safe and bye for now.